Hi everyone, I'm here with Luanne Hopkinson today. We actually connected through Instagram not that long ago, a few months ago. And the Rewiring Your Wellness blog, wasn't it? That's where I first discovered Luanne. She is in Australia, in Melbourne, and we were like, yeah, brain retrainers in Australia. So we jumped on a call and connected, and part of our chat that day was about re-entering the workforce or juggling work and brain retraining and healing and all of those kinds of things. And we had a really juicy chat about it. So we're not here to try and recreate that. It was actually at least 4 weeks ago. So I can't remember the exact details. But we're here to have a chat about that today because we both know from working with brain retrainers that is something that people come up against and can struggle with. So we're hoping to be able to shine some light on some solutions today. Luanne, do you want to introduce yourself, let people know a little bit about your healing journey and also a little bit about what you do now?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Bianca. My name is Luanne and I am a clinical nutritionist and a neuroplasticity coach. And I used to be a IT senior project manager in financial services. And I had a very, very busy job and a busy life and a lot of responsibility. And when I finally crashed the big one and got unwell, for me it was a bit of a progression. I was tired, I had rashes, I had stomach issues for like a year and a half, something like that. And even before that, if I look back now, which you do, once it's happened, you can see backwards. You know, I had IBS. I was never quite as energetic as other people. I had anxiety. I'd had panic attacks in the past. All of these things that kind of build up together. And I was doing I thought I had a really good life because, you know, I was having a lot of fun. I was working, I was going out. I was getting tighter and tighter. And I started changing my schedule so I could work 4 days a week. I started having to come home from work for naps. And I was really lucky that I lived close to work. And then I got engaged. And it was amazing. And then 2 weeks later, I couldn't get out of bed. It was like, that's it, game over. I was still trying to work. I couldn't get out of bed. I was still ringing the office. I was trying to get other people to do things while I was still organizing and managing. I couldn't let go. Even though I was so sick, I was literally sleeping 20 hours a day. And I was shot.
Yeah.
So yeah. And it took me quite a lot of effort to let go of that and finally get to the point where I had to give up and just say, I can't come back to work. Like I kept taking time off. And then I'd try and go back for a day a week or 2 days a week and I'd be like, I can't do it. And then, signed off completely. And at the time, I was diagnosed with heavy metal toxicity, mold exposure, and so I stopped work completely, and I never really got better, even with all the treatments. I went through some fairly heinous treatment for heavy metal toxicity, which made me worse. I got mast cell activation syndrome. And during that time when I was unwell, being the sort of achiever that I am, I went back and studied nutrition. Because even though I was very tired, even though I was a very tired human being, I would just get all ready to go to clinic, go to student clinic, and then I'd kind of sleep it off for a few days. And then I'd be kicked, you know, I wasn't able, like my identity was very much wrapped around being able to achieve things, which I think a lot of us can identify with.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
eventually I got to the point with the mast cell activation that I couldn't do anything. I had to stop everything I was doing. And at that point, I'd actually already started doing my nutrition practice, and I was working a little bit, just limited hours. But as the mast cell activation and histamine intolerance progressed, I ended up like unable to leave my house and having anaphylaxis pretty much every day, and just not being able to eat anything and really in a very bad place. So that's when I came across brain retraining. And I'd already come across it earlier in my chronic fatigue experience, but I don't think I was bad enough then. I hadn't hit rock bottom enough to really give it a good go. And I think that's very common. I think it happens a lot. But this time around, I was all in. And I had lots of time. I meditated twice a day. I did all my visualizations and all my neuroplasticity exercises. I did vagus nerve exercises and breathing exercises, and slept and walked as much as I was capable. And I did all of that. And it did take a while for me. I am now 2.5 years since that brain retraining, when I started brain retraining, which was November 2019. So it's been a while. And I think at this stage, I say that I'm around 90% recovered.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's kind of where I came from. Yeah.
I love hearing your story, because one, if someone's watching this and they haven't been through a perfect storm like that, it's just such an insight into how little breadcrumbs, little signals, little red flags going off. It's like that is building.
Oh, yeah.
And many brain retrainers and healers who will be watching this, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or wherever, will be like, yep. And that identity piece that you spoke about as well is really a huge part of what I work on with people. Is it's so important, because if you're making you about what you achieve, and then you can't achieve, who are you? Like, what are you to do? And that's a crisis that I think a lot of brain retrainers go through, because the perfect storm often comes from perfectionists, overachievers, like people who are just pushing and striving and going. And that's both of us sitting right here, right? Exactly how we hit our perfect storms.
Absolutely.
So, what would you say about the identity piece? Like, did you make any conscious decisions around it, or was it like a just surrender? Like, well, actually, I have to just give in to this, because this is me now.
I actually got to that point. I said, I cannot have any more clients. I was halfway through a master's in nutrition that I decided to start as well, even though I was not a particularly well person. And I am giving up the master's partway through, and stopping all my clients was just, it was heartbreaking. And it was, I feel emotional. It was like losing myself, my whole sense of self. And I feel like a big part of the healing process for me was complete acceptance and surrender to what was happening.
Yeah.
And being able to just be like, you know, you've lost everything, but you're still you, and you still have inherent value and worth as a human being. And being able to somehow just get into that mode of acceptance. Because for me, I also, after I started brain retraining, being what I am, I studied I-rest yoga nidra meditation, and I'm a teacher in that now. And a big part of that also was about being, just being, and just that acceptance of just being, and actually being able to be there in meditation with all the symptoms, and feeling into that part of the body with the symptoms and accepting that it's there and allowing. Because the tension within our nervous system when we're rejecting whatever the situation is creates more nervous system imbalance and gets us more into that fight-flight mode. And so for me as well, because of my training, as soon as I learned about the brain retraining, I was just like, holy crap, this is amazing. You know, like I'd learned about things like the vagus nerve and the gut-brain connection. I'd learned a little bit about nervous system stuff. But once you pull it all together and look at the science, I was like, oh, this is great. Now, it doesn't mean to say that I found it easy. I did not find it easy. I can't visualize. I have like aphantasia where you close your eyes and someone says, look, imagine a rainbow, and I can't see a thing. So I had to figure out how to do it as well without being able to visualize colors or whatever. I had lots of problems. I went backwards and sideways and up and down. But yeah, that identity piece is very much around being able to let go and surrender and grieve the loss without it stopping you from doing what you need to do next, I think.
Yeah, huge point you make there is like grieve the loss, accept the loss, because if you don't accept it, you can't grieve it. And I guess in acceptance, you're realizing that it's not a loss, it's just a thing. It's just something that's going on, right?
Yeah, it's the same for me with food. So food was a big part of what I had a problem with. I was down to about 5 foods, and I work with people obviously in nutrition and food fear and dealing with that. And one of the first most important things that I learned to do was focus on gratitude for what I was eating. However simple, however boring, but that gratitude changes the situation, changes the neurochemistry, changes what's going on when you're eating. And, you know, I find a lot of people come to me and they're just so frustrated, so jealous, so upset that they can't eat food, that they hate what they're eating. And that, you know, changing that energy is a big thing.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think it's also very common because, again, there's that sense of loss. I remember being on a call with a brain retrainer and she was saying, you know, before, like, I wasn't grateful for what my body could do. And I said, are you grateful now? And she was like, no, like she just wanted that back, right? Yeah. But she could still walk. She could still, from memory, like work out a little bit. She could do some things, but she couldn't find gratitude for that because she was so focused on what she couldn't do. And that is brain retraining in itself, like refocusing your mind, refocusing, choosing that gratitude and experiencing it, not just like, oh yeah, I'm grateful for this, cool, let's eat. Like really cultivating that sense of gratitude within your system and feeling butterflies or the goosebumps or whatever happens for you when you're grateful. And then you're there, and then the neurochemistry and the biochemistry is taken over, and then your body's pretty happy to eat. So let's chat then about these transitions. And I know in our last conversation, I was asking you, because work for me is something that can tip me, like it can send me on a wonky day or a wonky little ebb. And so I was asking you, like, how did you go about going back to work after having all the time and brain retraining and studying and accepting and going on the journey that you went on, moving back into work? What was that experience like for you, and what do you think went well, and maybe what would you do differently if there was anything?
There's a lot of I wish I'd done this a little bit differently. I think one of the most important things for that transition is the pacing back in, right? And I luckily, you know, in my own business, I started with one client. You know, so I started with one client with one initial session that went for an hour and a half, and I still crashed afterwards. I was quite tired afterwards because it was new. Now, the important thing to remember is if you are a perfectly healthy person and you go on holiday for a month and you go back to work, you are tired as for the first week.
Yeah.
You know, like you're exhausted because you've been on holiday. I mean, I'd done that in the past. I'd gone away for 3 months and then come back and got myself a job, and you're exhausted.
Work is so hard.
So keeping it in context, right? It's pretty normal to be tired when you start a new job and to feel overwhelmed and to feel a little bit like anxious and all of these things, right? So for me, I often forgot that, but I still kept moving forward with slow but steady increase in capacity. So you start with the one client, you do that consult, and you do that work, and you work for a few hours, and then you go on to the next thing and you work for a few hours. Now, for some people, it's not that easy. You can't always get a job that is going to let you work for half a day or just a few hours or something like that. But you want to pace yourself in however that looks for you. With some of my clients, when they've done it, they've gone in 3 days a week, you know, and they've had a couple of days off. And then we organise to have like spa time after work. You come home from work and everyone leaves you alone for an hour. And that's when you meditate, you do some rounds, you rest, to allow yourself to slowly increase your capacity while working on giving yourself that nervous system nourishment and things like that you need.
I love that idea.
Yeah. And then the other thing, of course, is breaks. You know, like some companies, you can't have much of a break, others you can. So working on your breaks and going in the bathroom and doing some breathing exercises, stuff like that.
Or outside, if you prefer, not the toilets, and that's possible.
Maybe a park, you know, wherever you can hide, a meeting room, you know, duck down behind a counter, whatever. But finding ways that you can do these things, do visualizations in your head, even when you're just surrounded by people and stuff like that. And, you know, for me, it was very much still that up, down. You know, you find your nervous system gets a bit activated. You don't sleep that night, or, you know, you've done too much work. You have a bit of a dip the next day. That's pretty normal. That's going to happen because that's what our nervous system does. Like it's constantly looking for homeostasis, just the way as our body is. And so it swings a bit too far this way, then it swings a bit too far this way, and it slowly gets to the center point. But, you know, we're not robots and it moves around. So for me, it was just continually increasing my workload, giving myself breaks, giving myself walks, meditations, time in nature, all of those things in between the work, and not letting the work take over, which is my tendency.
And I think can be a lot harder when you're working for yourself and you're a one-man band, which we were talking about before we hit record, and B, doing something you're so excited about and passionate about, and especially if you just studied, you're like, I want to get out and play with this, I imagine. Like,
well, that's the thing. And because I'd seen some nutrition clients before, but now I knew all this other stuff. And so I started with some nutrition clients and I was like, this isn't right. I can't just teach nutrition. I have to teach brain retraining as well. And I have to bring in all of the practices that I know and pull them all together. So now I don't just do nutrition. If somebody does nutrition with me, they do everything. They get the whole package because I want them to know all the tools that are available to create their toolbox and, you know, find which ones are right for them. And getting back out there, I was so excited. I just want to help everyone. It's so easy to burn out when you just want to help everyone because, you know, like, you do find with social media that there's a lot of there's a lot of people coming in with questions and asking stuff, and it does get quite tiring. So you do have to manage your energy. You have to think about how are you going to structure your day. What are you going to do? How are you going to organize blocks of time so that you're not just working? Because if I'm not really strict with myself, I'll just keep going. And if my partner wasn't around, I would just keep going. And then I notice when I've done too much.
Yeah.
And actually, the more you do it and the more your nervous system settles, the more you get that you can feel that check engine light earlier.
Yeah.
You know, I feel a bit of a hum in my body, or I might feel a bit of tiredness creeping in. I can feel it starting.
Yeah, I get that too.
Everyone sort of gets to that point where it's like you learn, what is your tell, right? What is your check engine light? What is that signal that you feel? Is it a cramping in the stomach because you're tense, or is it your shoulders? Is it your jaw? Are you feeling anxious or palpitations? Are you feeling tired? Like, what's the first thing that happens for you? Because we're all different. And a lot of times that's what happens before the symptom, the big symptom.
Yeah.
So if you're able to tune in, you can figure out what that is, and then you can go, okay, well, what do I need to do? I need to stop half an hour before that, or, you know, trying to figure that out as much as you can. But you can still have where you go back to work and you have to work a full day and you feel really tired, but then you're nurturing yourself, and people can still recover doing it that way too.
Yeah, and many people do, right?
Yeah.
They don't have the ability or the luxury of being able to have time off work to just go into healing hibernation.
Yeah.
Some people need to keep working to keep food on the table, to keep bills paid.
Yeah. And that's it. I've had clients go, you know, 3 days to 4 days to 5 days, and it's just about working on the tools and the techniques while you're doing it.
And again, probably about that, the same things, right? The time blocking and then the rest and the nurturing, it's all needs to be there. Even if you are working a job, it's like, okay, that needs to come in as well. And the red flags and
the red flags, and doing things as well that can help you. Like for me, I have a timer on my desk, which hopefully you guys can see.
I can't quite, oh, there we go. Yeah,
you can see it with the light. I don't know. And this is like literally turn it and it ticks, and when it dings, I get up from my desk. You know, it's like forcing yourself to be reminded of time passing, because it can be easy if you're engrossed in work not to notice time pass. 3 hours have gone by and you haven't moved. And movement's a big thing, as you know, you well know. That's what you do so much of in the laughter yoga. And you know, if you're stuck sitting in the same spot all the time, your circulation's cut off, your lymphatic system's not moving. You want to get up and walk and have those regular movement breaks as well. So yeah, so that's the sort of other kinds of tools you can use too.
Yeah, I love that. I feel I need to go buy the timer, because mine is a phone, and then if I set it, I set it, and if I don't, I don't. So I think a big timer like yours would be very helpful.
Still, sometimes I ignore it, but I try and put it on my keyboard.
Get out of my way.
Yeah, it's like I have to turn you on to move you, you know. So that, you know, sometimes we have to be quite strict with ourselves to try and follow some form of routine that works for us. There's also like the Pomodoro timers as well, you know, on your phone, which people use as well. So those can be good too.
Yeah, I do like that. I'm like, short spurts, little break. It's good.
Yeah. And you've got to find out what works best for you. I tried it. 20 minutes isn't long enough for me. I need a bit longer because I really get in flow. And then, so more like half an hour. But everyone's a little bit different. I think that's why it's good to have someone who can mirror back to you, like what's going on, what you're doing, and is it working, and like helping you kind of, because sometimes when you're in it, you know, all you can see is the demands upon you and not the clearing spaces that you can make, you know. Yeah,
totally. Sometimes I feel like waving the flag at my partner, like I'm in overdrive over here, like pull me out, I just need a break, but I can't because I got this to do and this to do, and I just do this, I'll just do that, and I'll just do that,
yeah,
and then it'll be midnight.
Yeah, and my partner often says, you know, well, is it a wish list or a to-do list? Like, how many of those things are absolutes? And that prioritization when we do our to-do list as well is really important. You know,
yeah,
the must-haves and then the like-to-haves and things like that. What can you push out? Because we often overschedule. People underestimate how much they can do in a day, and they underestimate how much they can do in a year. I don't remember where I got that quote from, but it's very true.
Overestimate. Yeah. I've heard overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years.
Yeah.
With like business building, but same thing. Right?
Yeah.
And it kind of feels relieving when you do that, because I've done that at times where I'm like, okay, what do I have to do today? Because I'm exhausted today. What do I have to do? Like, oh, well, really, I just have to send this one thing to this one person. Everything else could wait till tomorrow or the next day or the next day or the next day. And that can be incredibly relieving. And also for the achievers in the house, you feel like, okay, I've done the thing. Yay, me. And if you get anything above and beyond done, great. And if you need to take the rest of the day to rest or be away from technology or whatever it is, then you can do that, and it feels better to me personally that way.
Yeah. And realizing which parts of it are maybe people pleasing or you know, that like where are those parts of us taking over, taking control, and where we can bring in our observer and we can see what's going on and we go, okay, that's that old friend of mine again. Hi, no. We're not doing it that way today, you know.
We're not in charge today.
Yeah, you bring it in for a cup of tea and conversation, and you just say, well, what's going on here? You know, like, is this helping us with our healing process or is it hindering? And realizing that sometimes we just have to do things, and that's cool. But where we can, if we're able to pace things, then we will. And then also, you know, for situations where you can't pace, you can use visualization as well. Visualization of sitting at your desk feeling calm, you know, having a meeting and it going well. All those kinds of visualization options as well, where you're really like using that preemptive capacity in our brain, just the way athletes do when they visualize shooting that basketball hoop. We're doing the same thing, you know, and actually being able to then say to our brain, well, when I use my computer, I actually can be calm. And that's a real big change, because for me, from an IT background, the computer equals stress. Middle of the night trying to fix the whole network stress, you know, that's where I came from. And so it's quite hardwired sort of thing, and I'm pulling it out piece by piece, and I'm shifting it little by little, and it's about chipping away. But using those kind of visualizations can really help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to loop back to one thing that you said before we wrap up for today. You said before that you struggled with visualization, right? You can't see. What did you do?
I just don't understand it.
You still don't.
I don't understand it. Like, people say, visualize this thing, and I'm like, okay, yeah. So I can. It's a story to me. It's like reading words or writing. You know, like it's a story, but I don't see it. I never understood. And then I found out. I did a bit of a Google, and I found it's a thing. It's called aphantasia, and actually now, I think my brain is changing a little bit, and I am starting to get the odd flashes of images, and I'm starting to dream again. I haven't dreamed for 20 years or so.
Wow.
More. I only ever really remember having the odd nightmare. So I'm just that visual capacity just in my brain gone. And so it's interesting that I do get the odd flash of an image every so often now. So it definitely shows that how the brain can change and how that's coming in a little bit. But it also, I think, is hope for people who might say, oh, I tried to do this and I can't.
Yeah.
Our brain actually works with what it's got, and whatever your brain does and how it does its thing, as long as you're working with that, it works. Like, the tools work. Sometimes you just need a coach or someone to actually help you tweak it, you know. And so that's why, like, I've got my program, which is Brain Food, which teaches neuroplasticity, and it includes some coaching sessions, because I found like a lot of people fall off the horse at the first hurdle, where they watch a video or two, try it and go, this doesn't work for me. So I was like, okay, yeah, that was, you know, what I did the first time when I watched half the videos, and I was like, this is too, like, it was all too hard. And so, yeah, I figure, okay, let's try and see if this helps for people to, you know, learn how it all works and have some coaching so they can tweak it and have that all together.
Yeah.
In one little package for them. So, you know, teaching, and this is my own method, because the methods I used, I didn't like this and I didn't like that and I didn't like the other thing. And some of them just didn't work for me because I couldn't visualize. And so I did definitely change things around a lot for myself. And so then I was like, well, when I want to teach people, how do I want to teach them? What do I want to bring in? I brought in a bit more somatic presence. I brought in a bit more positive stuff, because I felt like some of them focused on some of the negatives. And so I changed a lot of that stuff around for myself, for what worked for me, and you know, what can work for my clients as well. So yeah,
super important. And I think that somatic approach and the grouping and I always call it like a patchwork of skills that you're bringing to the table, that I do, because I came from a coaching background as well. And like, you know, and the laughter, obviously not every brain retrainer is using laughter, but all the little pieces.
I did use that.
I think it's so important, and to cater to different people, like, because some people are coming and they do have food sensitivities, and your course includes that. And, you know, you've dealt with not being able to visualize things, and then, I just think it's great, the diversity that you've put into your program, from what I understand about it. So
yeah, I really found like food stuff was like a afterthought in the other programs. And I saw so many other people just like me really struggling with the food idea and what to do with food. So I really sort of wanted to give people something that is more focused in that area. Because food is one of those fundamental things that you're doing 3 times a day, and yet, you know, you're retraining and it's always there. So it's one of these 24/7 things. So it's good to be able to offer something that helps people in that area, I feel like, as well. Yeah,
absolutely. And if people want to connect with you, obviously I can tag you into this video. Whereabouts can they find you online?
So I've got a couple of different websites. I've got Oliver Health and Nutrition, which is my nutrition practice. And then I've also got Happy Without Histamine, which is my focus on products and tools and services for people with histamine intolerance and mast cell activation, which I had. And that's kind of my primary methods of providing courses and programs and recipe books and all that sort of stuff as well. So
yeah, beautiful. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I know we've gone over. I kind of suspected that maybe we'd get into
the
conversation. Went a little bit longer than planned, but I really appreciate you jumping on today and sharing what you have shared. And for those of you who are watching who aren't connected with Luanne, you can find her around the place, Instagram, and you're also on Facebook. Yeah. Do you have?
Yeah. Same name, Oliver Health and Nutrition, and Happy Without Histamine on Facebook as well, and the websites.
Awesome. Thanks,
Bianca.
No worries.